Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, Cyril Gerald Quinn. Recording this, of course, on a Tuesday as we discuss the world of sports and a little bit of pop culture. Episode 974. Someone check on your man, Jerry Jones. Check on your man, Jerry Jones. He's just might be time for a wellness check. Like, seriously, Jerry's, not easy being the owner, general manager, de facto coach, of a franchise, of America's team. But we're going to begin, as always, with the game of the week. A very good game. I'm going to say it was a classic, but just a very good game. Nice cat and mouse battle between the Baltimore Ravens and Washington Commanders. As expected, the Ravens come out on top 30-23. This game, listen, it's probably what I expected, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think this game was about, to me, this game was about Jaden Daniels. Again, I understand Lamar Jackson was spectacular in this game, was great in this game. The interception was a fluke interception, so that really wasn't on him. 20 of 26, 323 yards, touchdown, interception, 11 carries for 40 yards. Still a little high with the carries, but Derrick Henry did most of the heavy lifting with the 24 carries, 132 yards. This game was about Jaden Daniels. To me, Jaden Daniels, I thought had his best game. I thought this was the best game of Jaden Daniels' career. And the reason why I say that is considering the opponent, considering the fact that this team, the Ravens, are a team that's absolutely tailor-made to defend a quarterback like Jaden Daniels because they have Lamar Jackson. And I knew they were going to listen, especially without Brian Robinson out. And that was a big loss for Washington. But I knew that Washington was not going to be able to run the ball. They came in averaging like 174. I knew that wasn't going. They would struggle to crack 120, and it was even less than that. They got outrushed by Baltimore 176-52. And Baltimore, over the course of the season, has been destroying everybody and with their rushing attack, not just putting up numbers themselves, but really holding other teams down. Coming into this game, they were out rushing people by like 150 or more. So actually, Washington did a decent job compared to some of the teams that Baltimore had went up against in terms of the rushing differential. So I knew Baltimore would be able to take away the run. So that means what was Jaden Daniels going to have to do from the pocket? And I thought he was phenomenal. To be honest with you, I thought he was phenomenal. And again, the numbers don't tell the story. I mean, very good numbers, 24-35, 269, 2 touchdowns. But that doesn't even begin to tell the story as far as just his manipulation of the defense, is throwing receivers open. The two touchdown passes to Terry McLaurin were just absolute dimes. Those are passes that, again, all pro and Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks make. 5 year, quarterbacks in their third or fourth, fifth year make. And, there's a comparison with him and Lamar Jackson, of course, because these are both similar quarterbacks as far as the ability to just put all types of pressure on the defense but keeping plays alive, and of course their ability to run at any time. There's no comparison. When you compare Jaden Daniels to Lamar Jackson, when Lamar Jackson was in his rookie season, there's no comparison in terms of throwing from the pocket. He is light years ahead of Lamar Jackson from the pocket. Like Lamar Jackson, his rookie season, he had a very good rookie season. He only completed 58% of his passes. Jaden Daniels is completing like 75% of his passes. 75. And these are not dinks and dunks. So in terms of pocket presence, in terms of making plays from the pocket, there's absolutely no comparison. Now, again, we'll see. Time will tell. Lamar Jackson has 2 MVPs and is on his way to the Hall of Fame without question. But as far as comparing them in terms of like from the pocket, and that's the most important thing to me coming into this season with Jaden Daniels. I didn't care about the running. And I said that I don't care about his ability to run. Is what is the plays that he can make, what will determine his greatness, what will determine where this team to win Super Bowls in the future, in the near future, is if Jaden Daniels develops as a pocket passer. Jaden Daniels puts the pressure on the team from the pocket. It's just that simple. And yesterday, I thought he was phenomenal from the pocket. He's been great from the pocket all season long, to be honest with you. But I thought that team knows how to defend the running quarterback as well as it is better than anyone. They had Lamar Jackson. So that was, again, you lose again. That if you're going to lose a game, if you're Washington, that was the game to lose. On the road, non-divisional, non-conference. So it doesn't hurt them per se in terms of the standings. As far as competing with the other teams in the NFC. Again, Baltimore's rushing attack. Again, I don't know. Good luck holding Baltimore under 150 yards. I think if you hold Baltimore under 150 yards, I think you've done a good job, to be honest with you. I mean, they are averaging right now. They have to be averaging close to 200 yards rushing. As I look at these numbers now, they're averaging 205 yards rushing. And this is not college. This is not high school. This is the NFL. 205 yards rushing. 205. And the nearest team, as far as yards per game, Washington came in. The nearest team is the Green Bay Packers at 167. San Francisco at 158, Detroit 157, Washington's at 157. Washington was at 174, but that dropped, of course, dramatically with yesterday's performance. So the nearest team is almost just 38 yards. Basically, 38 yards from the nearest team is 38 yards less from the Ravens as far as yards rushing. That is again 205 yards rushing a game. And Derrick Henry, the last couple games, he's gotten off to slow starts, but he can break a 40, 50-yard run at any time now. You saw him break a run last week when he was struggling. Against, I think Cincinnati. Yeah, against Cincinnati. And I think, again, the first half, for the most part, Washington held him in check, and he went crazy in the second half. And, of course, that coincided with the Jonathan Allen injury, which is a big injury for the Washington. Losing that guy who's been a Pro Bowler, very good player, veteran player, that's a big loss for Washington off a defensive line that's already thin as it is, and was not a strength coming into the season, not a big time strength coming into the season. There were question marks, especially in regards to the pass rush. So he is been their stalwart defensive player and the most consistent defensive player over the past couple of years. And again, that's a big time loss, and they will probably going to have to go out and, with this trade deadline and try to make a move. But overall, I think if you're a Commanders fan, which I am, you had to be pleased with them being able to hang and basically go toe to toe with a team that a lot of people have outside of Kansas City, the favorite to go and possibly win the Super Bowl in regards to the Baltimore Ravens. Again, Ravens controlled this game from the line of scrimmage. They outrushed Washington 176-52, and they outgained Washington 484 to 305. They time possession 36, had the ball for 36 minutes. So they controlled this game. It was on their pace, but give Washington credit. A lot of credit for hanging in there. Winning this game, easily could have gotten away a couple of times. So this is becoming kind of a tradition when Dallas plays home games. I got a lot on this game. Dallas absolutely gets is a woodshed special in Dallas. 47, they fall. The Lions fall is not even describing it. It's more like Detroit pulled out a large can of whoop ass, 47-9. Dallas is now in their last 4 games, including the playoff embarrassment to the Green Bay Packers at the hands of the Green Bay Packers. Dallas now is 0-4 in their last 4 games at home. They've been outscored. They've allowed 167 points. They've been outscored in the first half of these games 110-36. I'll repeat that, 110-36. The major news to come out of this game was, but unfortunately for the Lions, was the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. Their great defensive end who was headed towards being an All-Pro this year and definitely in the conversation for defense. He would have been in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. He's had a phenomenal start to the season, coming off a great 2023. Breaks his leg. Scary, just an ugly injury to watch. Now, Campbell's holding out hope that he can possibly return. You know how football coaches are, especially ex-players, which Campbell is. I would be shocked, but even with all the modern medicine and technology, I'd be shocked if he comes back. Like, you talking about a broken leg? This is not Terrell Owens with a broken ankle. We're talking about a broken leg. And to give Terrell Owens a lot of credit, too, back in the day, coming back with the Super Bowl. I didn't think he was going to come back for that. So give him credit from that standpoint. But this guy is very young. He is your franchise defensive player. You don't want to play like that. I don't think you will see Aiden Hutchinson for the rest of 2024, and we won't see him till next season. Listen, what can you first? Because I got plenty on Dallas. Detroit going to that. That was a Super Bowl caliber win for Detroit. And again, I know Dallas is a mess right now, but that's not even the point. Detroit came in there and absolutely handled business. That is what a Super Bowl caliber team does. They take advantage of a team that's fragile or has a weakness. They ran right down their throats. And they absolutely took it to Dallas. They toyed with Dallas in that game. And the Aiden Hutchinson thing that's a huge loss. I can't undersell how big of a loss that is, but I still think Detroit is a team that can get to the Super Bowl and possibly win it, and possibly even win the Super Bowl. I really like this Detroit team a lot. Goff has been playing well, especially the past couple of weeks. They have an identity. They believe in what they do, and they're not afraid of anybody. They're not. They should have beat San Francisco last year. They have a big showdown this week with Minnesota. That'll be a fun game to watch. But I really was impressed with Detroit in their professionalism during this game. They didn't play with their food. Once they jumped on Dallas, it was a wrap. Kept their foot down. It was no miracle. We seen Dallas make some of these wild comebacks that make the game closer than it actually is at times. We saw it against Green Bay, saw it against Baltimore a couple weeks back. That was not the case. That was not going to be the case in this game. As far as Dallas goes, so what you're seeing with the Cowboys is you're seeing a culmination of just pure dysfunction. I'm not even going to address the offseason as far as what they did do in terms of add to their team. I'm actually with Jerry Jones on that one because it wasn't really much. Even though they had needs, they tried to address it through the draft. And you're not going to plug every hole with free agency. And you got to remember, they paid Dak, they paid CeeDee Lamb. Where was the rest of the money coming from? Now, you want to knock him for losing Tony Pollard? Then fine. That's fair game. But outside of that, I'm not going to knock them for what they didn't do in the offseason. This is a culmination of dysfunction. This is a culmination of negative energy, waiting until the last minute to sign Lamb, to sign Dak Prescott. This is a culmination of them not firing Mike McCarthy. Not them, Jerry Jones not firing Mike McCarthy when he should have. You have a lame duck coach. You think Mike McCarthy has that locker room? I don't care what Dak says about him. No, he doesn't have that. They don't trust Mike McCarthy. And nor should they. He's not at this stage in his career, he's becoming like the Doc Rivers of the NFL. He's just not the one championship coach who's just not very good right now. It's just that his best days are behind him as a head coach in the NFL, period. So let's get to the Jerry Jones aspect of the interview. Of course, had an interview on 105.3, their station that, of course, covers the Cowboys, the whole nine. And, Jerry got a little agitated over some questioning about the offseason. I've personally have heard. It's been a long time since I heard him, basically threaten to remove them from the Cowboys from that station and says, I can, we can take our sign a multi-million-dollar deal somewhere else. Basically, that's how bad it got for Jerry. Never seen Jerry that agitated. What this Jerry Jones's reaction, and the questions were very fair. These questions were not like out of pocket. These were very legitimate, fair questions. It wasn't even about the questions that were being asked. The questions that were being asked. If you listen to that interview, it was about 23 minutes. Jerry Jones mentioned a couple of times about Dak Prescott being the highest paid player, the highest paid quarterback in the league, the highest paid, which he is, highest paid quarterback in NFL history, which he is. There's buyer's remorse for that for Jerry Jones in terms of that signing. What Jerry Jones really wanted to say is, hey, we do have some injuries. Hey, we're not as strong at certain spots as we could be, but our highest paid quarterback of all time should be able to cover up some of those holes. That's why we're paying him. And guess what? He wouldn't be wrong. You're paying a guy, which you're paying Dak Prescott, he should be able to cover up those holes. Okay? That's what franchise quarterbacks, forget about franchise, that's what superstar quarterbacks do. But we all know Dak Prescott, maybe he's a franchise quarterback. Yes. Is he a superstar quarterback? Absolutely not. Is he somebody that's going to make his teammates better? Absolutely not. Or cover up holes? Absolutely not. Right now, Dak Prescott has 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, completing only 63% of his passes. He has been average to mediocre this year. But for the Cowboys to even have a chance, he would have to have an MVP caliber season like he did last year, or come close to that. He's nowhere near that. Matter of fact, again, last year, he was 36-9. He only threw 9 interceptions. He already has 6, and it's not even Halloween yet. So he's going to surpass that number. He's going to be in that 12, easily going to be in that 12 to 15 range. Jerry Jones doesn't believe in Dak Prescott. And it kills him that he paid him that money. It burns at his soul that he paid Dak Prescott that money. Because he knows in his heart of hearts that Dak was not worth it, but he had no other choice. He had no other choice but to pay Dak Prescott that money. And he knows Dak is not that dude. We know Dak is not that dude. So this is a culmination, again, a bunch of dysfunction that now everything is falling apart. And I told you, I wasn't high on the Cowboys. I didn't like the Cowboys coming into this season strictly based off that fact. The fact that Dak Prescott's contract would kick in and the team was not as talented as it has been in past years. It's just not. Jerry can say what he wants. And by the way, Jerry Jones, if you listen to that interview, Jerry Jones wants you to view him from the prism of the owner who was hugging Jimmy Johnson back in the early 90s when they won 3 out of 4 Super Bowls. He wants you to still believe he's that guy. If you listen to the interview, he mentions, talk about bringing up my wrongs, then bring up the rights. No, Jerry, we're not talking about the rights. Those rights are 30 years old, Jerry. They're 30 years old. They haven't won the Super Bowl since 1995 season. So no one cares about those rights right now. There's a lot of dust on those Super Bowl trophies. There's a whole generation that wasn't even born last time the Cowboys won the Super Bowl. So they are it's gonna be interesting watching them for the rest of the year because they'll start getting healthier. Like Mekhi Parsons will be back, DeMarcus Lawrence will be back, the safety Bland will be back. So they have some injuries, but everybody has injuries. Even Jerry mentioned that during the course of the interview. Team is not well coached. They're not well run. The quarterback has been average to mediocre this year. They're fortunate to be 3-3, to be honest with you. they're fortunate they have played some of the teams that Cleveland was in the tank, that they play a Pittsburgh team that doesn't have a quarterback themselves, or a developmental quarterback in Justin Fields at best. So or a Giant team that's mediocre, but they're nowhere near, not even close to the elite teams in this league. Detroit, San Francisco, they're not even as good as Washington, to be honest with you. I'd rather Jaden McDaniels or Dak Prescott right now. Not McDaniels, Jaden Daniels, excuse me. Who are you taking? Which culture are you taking right now? Washington's culture is better than Dallas's right now. So it's gonna be a long season for the Cowboys. It's gonna be this is just the beginning. Their schedule is not easy in the least bit. Buffalo gets by the Jets 23-20. This game has so much potential. This game actually, in the first half, I was about to switch this game and make this my game of the week, and then the second half happened. So the first half, you get 37 points. You get Rodgers playing as well as he's played all season long. You got, Josh Allen doing Josh Allen stuff, making plays. And it's exciting football. Offenses are moving. The game is fluid. And then you get the second half. Second half, the team scores 6 points. You get a bunch of missed field goals. Because you had a missed extra point in the first half, but you had a bunch of missed field goals in the second half. 22 penalties for almost 200 yards between the teams. The second half was hard. It was tough to watch in the second half. The Jets, had a chance to win. Had a chance to win down the stretch, but again, they missed the field goals. The missed field goals killed them. The red zone trips of the failure in the red zone killed them. And of course, the interception, great interception by Taron Johnson, by the way, with the receiver falling down. I'm not putting that on Rodgers because the receiver fell down. Rodgers actually played well last night. Wasn't good enough, but actually played to me his best game of the season. In terms of his accuracy and looking comfortable in the pocket and making plays. But Buffalo again has owned that division, owned the Jets. So that was nothing new. But that game was right there for the Jets. That's just a bitter loss in the division at home at that for the Jets. But all is not bad. But all is not bad for the Jets because today they were able to acquire one Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams, I still think can play. I don't think he's a Devontae Adams that he was with the Packers when he was making all pro teams and Pro Bowls. I don't think he's that guy, but he still is a very good player. He had over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns last season. So I still think he can play at a relatively high level. I don't think he's a top receiver anymore. I don't think Devontae Adams is a top 5 receiver, but he's still in that 10 to 12 range. And again, with Garrett Wilson, you don't need Devontae Adams to be that lights out number one. So the Jets make the move. And why not? If you're banking on a 41-year-old quarterback, I can't knock this move at all. To give third round pick, you have to win this season. You have to make the playoff this season. Aaron Rodgers, of course, is not getting any younger. So they go all in to get Devontae Adams. The Bulls, I thought, made the even more important, and I think this will be a more productive move in terms of getting Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper can still play at a high level. He is still a very good player. Amari Cooper, if you remember a few years back, changed the fortune of Dallas' season back in 2018 when they were going nowhere, and they were able to make the playoffs. In that year, when they looked bad, he completely changed the fortune and changed that offense, took the offense to a whole nother level. If you go back to that season, I still think Cooper is a very good player. I still think, I think he's going to feel like he's been let out of jail when you go from Deshaun Watson to Josh Allen. That's going to the outhouse to the penthouse. He's going to be rejuvenated. He's going to automatically become that number one target. Everybody's going to fall back into place. And I think that is a big move. That's a great move for Buffalo. And they gave up next to nothing to get him. So that's a great job by Buffalo. They're 4-2 right now. They're going to win that division going away. They're just like, I don't, those teams, Miami, New England. New England's one of the worst teams in the league, and Miami's not going. Miami might as well tank this year. They're not going anywhere. So I think that Buffalo will win that division going. Is going to win the division going away. Can Buffalo get to the level of Kansas City and Baltimore? That's the question. But that's a big move for them to get Amari Cooper. Speaking of the Browns fall again to Philadelphia 20-16 in a game that, again, very ugly game. This game, you had a block punt, a block field goal return for a touchdown. That was Cleveland's only touchdown. Cleveland actually wasted an excellent defensive effort. They only gave up 13 points to the Eagles. You only give up 13 points. No, excuse me. They only give up 20 points to the Eagles. Their offense only scores, the offense doesn't score offensive touchdown. Cleveland this season has 80 points in 6 games. They are, and I'll get to the Eagles in a second. Cleveland is playing. Deshaun Watson is playing some of the worst quarterback that I've seen this decade. He is playing like a guy who doesn't belong in the NFL. It's been that bad. There was a point, and they were 3 for 12 this year. Not this year, but they were 3 for 12 in this game in terms of third down conversions, which is awful. We know coming into this game, they had a stretch where they were 0 for 26 on third downs. And I'm gonna repeat that: 0 for 26. That is almost impossible to go that many third downs without converting. It is almost impossible. I wouldn't have believed it. If I wouldn't have actually saw that number or saw that stat, I would not have believed it. If somebody would just told me that, I'd be like, "Yo, you full of shit. Come on, what? 0 for 26? No. Get out of here." Joe, just to compare Watson to Joe Flacco, who was, of course, the quarterback of Cleveland last year and helped get them to the playoffs, and right now who's playing well for Indianapolis. Joe Flacco has 8 straight games with 2 touchdowns or more. In 3 games this season, Joe Flacco has 7 touchdowns and 1 interception. Deshaun Watson in 6 games has 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And you go back to Deshaun Watson this year in the last 3 games before he got injured last year. So in a 9-game span, he has only twice has he cracked 2 or more touchdowns. Only twice in 9 games. So again, I can give you there's so many numbers I can give you, but this is just just put the numbers aside. Just watching this dude watching him play quarterback, you look like a guy who's never played quarterback. Or forget about a rookie. He looks like somebody who just has never played the position. That's how bad it's been. He's taking unnecessary sacks. He can't hit the side of a barn. And again, Cleveland has weapons. The tight end is very good. Amari Cooper, they have weapons. Now again, the offensive line, I understand, has been banged up. Chubb is a big loss. He's one of the top running backs. I get it from that standpoint. But no, again, similar to Dak Prescott, you were paying Deshaun Watson to not only play well, but to cover holes when your offensive line is banged up or when you don't have your running back. That's what you're paying him. And I don't understand why he hasn't been benched. I'm not the biggest Jameis Winston fan by any stretch of imagination. He could be obviously, we know he has talent, but he has like a 90-cent, he has a $1 million arm and a 10-cent head, to be honest with you, in terms of his mentality. But if I'm Kevin Stefanski, I cannot lose. I'm not losing my job because of Deshaun Watson. I have too much talent around me as far as this team goes. This team still has some players on defense. Chubb eventually will be back, but I'm not going to lose my job because I was afraid to bench Deshaun Watson. I'm sorry. I'm pulling the plug. I'm pulling the plug. Again, it's getting like they're more likely 1-5 is probably a death knell, especially in the AFC. How many teams? And we'll go over that later with the AFC with the conference standings. But you still have 11 games left. Still have 11 games left. Unless you just want to go out, unless he's received an edict from up top saying we're going to tank. Outside of that, I'm pulling the plug on Deshaun Watson. Sorry, pulling the plug. I cannot go. You can't tell me. And he came out and said this. He came out and said this today that you can't believe in your heart of hearts that Deshaun Watson gives your team the best chance to win. I'm sorry, you can't. If it's not Jameis Winston, just somebody off the street, like a quarterback that's on his couch right now. A quarterback that was similar to Joe Flacco last year, sitting at home watching the games. There absolutely has to be another option other than Deshaun Watson. It just has to be. And again, if I'm Kevin Stefanski, you have been as patient as you possibly can be with Deshaun Watson. Again, this is some of the worst quarterbacking you will ever see. Some of the worst quarterbacking you will ever see. 49ers get a much needed win over Seattle on Thursday night, 36-24. A vintage 49er game from the standpoint of running the ball. We know how much Kyle Shanahan loves to run the football. And once he gets a beat on your defense, it's a wrap. And that's what happened in the Seattle game. San Francisco ran the ball 33 times for 228 yards. I thought that while holding Seattle to 52 yards rushing, I thought Brock Purdy was spectacular in this game. I really did. And again, the numbers are very good. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 18 to 28, 255. But just his movement in the pocket, he's making plays that were not there. Staying with the play, maybe sometimes too long at times, but I really thought he played well in this game. Like his performance definitely stood out in this particular game, and that was a big win for San Francisco. San Francisco evens his record at 2-3. You're coming off, so they've had a couple of bad losses, an awful loss to Arizona. Now they are, to me, in firm control of that division. Seattle, we knew. Listen, Seattle at 3-0. We knew that was a paper 3. That was a soft 3-0. That was a paper 3-0. Seattle, they might not win a game for another month. The way they're playing right now, Geno Smith has looked terrible. You don't want to be, you don't want to have games where Geno Smith throws the ball 50 times or 40 times for that matter. So Seattle has came back down to earth, and I don't think they're going to get up anytime soon. But San Francisco, of course, has a big-time showdown this week with the Super Bowl rematch with the Kansas City Chiefs. So they're your fave. So they're my fave 4. Again, Dallas. Dallas is Dallas. The Jets are the Jets. Deshaun Watson is Deshaun Watson, and Detroit. Extremely, extremely impressive with what they did in Dallas. So every team has played at least 5 games, which is basically the quarter mark of the season. Looking at the standings here, and you have some great matchups this week with Kansas City, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, and Baltimore should be a lot of fun. Tampa Bay put 51 on the Saints and had almost like 600 yards of offense. That was just a wild game. Started out nice for the Saints, but didn't end well. You also, of course, we mentioned the Minnesota Detroit showdown, and the Green Bay Houston game should be fun, should be a lot of fun. So some great matchups coming up in week 7 already. We're going to be up on 6 games played already through 6 weeks in the NFL. Again, the season flies by before you know it. It'll be Thanksgiving. But looking at the standings, right? So the NFC, looking at the AFC first, Kansas City 5-0. You have Houston 5-1. Those are your 2 top seeds. Then you have a bunch of teams. You have 3 teams at 4-2. You have 4 teams with 2 or less losses: Baltimore, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and the Chargers. The Chargers are still. And hopefully everything is okay with one Jim Harbaugh. I know he has some medical issues with the irregular heartbeat that he's going to have to have monitored for a few weeks. I want to say probably for the rest of the season, to be honest with you. But that was anything with the heart is concerning. So hopefully he's doing well and will be okay from that standpoint. I still haven't figured the Chargers. I like how the Chargers are winning games because Justin Herbert doesn't have to carry it. They're winning with some defense. They're winning with their running game and attack. So with a running attack, so it's not. I do see what Harbaugh is doing as regards to having a balanced football team and not putting everything on Justin Herbert. But they don't have a lot of weapons. They don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of weapons for Herbert. To be honest with you, so and then they have some guys injured. I know as well on the defensive end. So Chargers will be interesting to watch. Indianapolis, Denver 3-3, Miami's 2-3. Forget about Miami and the Jets are the Jets. I have no faith in the Jets, even with Devontae Adams. I just don't. The Jets, it's one of those culture things. I just don't trust the Jets. That was an important game for Buffalo. It was an important game for Baltimore in terms of those victories, because those games could have went either way, especially the Buffalo Jets game. Neither one of those teams could not afford to fall 3 games for Baltimore to fall 3 games in the loss column behind Kansas City. And because Baltimore's already lost to Kansas City this season. So those are big wins for those 2 teams. Looking at it right now, Kansas City, if I'm looking at my crystal ball for the Super Bowl, as far as who looks the par of a Super Bowl contender, of course, obviously Kansas City, Baltimore with his pedigree. Need to see some more out of the Texans. I know I love the quarterback. I understand the quarterback is great. They've gotten off to a bad start, but need to see some more. To be honest with you, they've won a lot of close games. They won a lot of close games. They're only outscoring their opponents by a total of 8 points total this year. So I keep that in mind. Buffalo, we'll see. I think this Amari Cooper thing is going to take them to another level offensively. I'm not in love with the Buffalo defense this year. I think this is the weakest defense that they've had in a long time. In a very long time, especially under McDermott. I don't love their defense right now. I think the Jets went up and down the field against them. So I'm not in love with the defense, but this Amari Cooper thing would be interesting for them. So really, I would say 2 teams that I think can get to and win the Super Bowl out of the AFC, I would say right now on October 15th would be Kansas City and Buffalo. Excuse me, Kansas City and Baltimore. You go to the NFC. NFC is extremely interesting because you have an entire division that is 4-2 or better, which is unheard of. Never happened that you've had a division that has had a win percentage of 750 or more through 6 weeks. That's never happened in the history of football. Minnesota leads the conference at 5-0. You have Atlanta, Washington 4-2, San Francisco 3-3, Detroit 4-1, Tampa Bay 4-2. You have a bunch of teams that have 2 or less losses. There are a number of teams in the conference that have winning records or above 500. So I listen. I think pound for pound, I still San Francisco. You would lean towards San Francisco being San Francisco. So we know San Francisco, top to bottom, has the most talent. I'm still need to see some more. This Kansas City game will be a big game for San Francisco. That showed me that they've completely turned the corner. Much more important for them than it is Kansas City. I love Detroit. I love it again. In the preseason in August, I picked Detroit and Green Bay in the conference championship. I've seen nothing that would tell me that we won't be seeing that matchup in January. The way those 2 teams are playing, to be honest with you, I'm not a believer in Minnesota. I'm sorry, I'm not buying the Sam Darnold stock. Atlanta, I told you how I felt about Atlanta in August. That has not changed. Washington is interesting, but their defense is not there yet. Defensively, they're not there. They can play with anybody from an offensive standpoint. And I love their identity offensively, but the defense is just not there. Detroit, Green Bay, those are the 2 teams to watch out for. Tampa Bay is interesting as well. I like Tampa Bay. I'm not giving them enough credit. And Baker Mayfield has been phenomenal this year. So Tampa Bay should be that game against Baltimore. And Tampa Bay will be telling. To be honest with you, Tampa Bay beat Detroit. I know they wasn't supposed to, but they did. Tampa Bay did beat Detroit. Did beat Detroit earlier this year. They played well. Baker Mayfield's played great. So they're interesting, to say the least. But right now, if you made me choose how many teams in the AFC can get to the Super Bowl, I would say three. I would say Detroit, Green Bay, San Francisco, in that order. That could change after with Green Bay if San Francisco takes out Kansas City in terms of the order. But those are the three teams right now that I think that are not heads and shoulders above everybody else, but those are the three teams that are to me at the head of the class as far as it goes in the AFC. So right now you have I think 5 teams that can get to the Super Bowl, 2 in the AFC, 3 in the NFC. And to be honest with you, I don't think that number will grow by that much. I mean, I think there's potential for Buffalo to be added to that list. I know Cincinnati won, but I need to see a lot more. And they struggled to be a lowly giant team. Now, good thing for Cincinnati though, the defense only gave up 7 points, so that's a step in the right direction from that standpoint. And the NFC, I think it's clear cut in the NFC. I don't have any faith past those 3 teams. Everybody else is a major question mark, or frankly overachieving. Like you get past something's amiss with the Eagles. And again, let me get back to the Eagles for a second because I didn't talk about. I spent most of the time on Cleveland with their quarterback issues. If you're Nick Sirianni, I know you apologize today. If you're Nick Sirianni, right, there are 2 battles that you don't fight as a professional head coach, professional football coach. That's the media and that's the fan base. You're not winning either one of those battles, especially in the city of Philadelphia. Because I can tell you for a fact, there's a portion of the fan base that wanted him out, and there are a number of media people, radio and otherwise, who thought he should have lost his job. Like you're not winning those battles. You're just not. Take the win and go in the locker room. Like what are you doing? Now, here's what I'll say, because as somebody in education, you're taught in education, especially dealing with behavior, as I do, you're taught to look at both sides when there is you have to look at both sides when there is some type of issue with between people and what have you, and that's fine, and you should look at both sides. So I get if you're Sirianni, in the back of your mind that if you don't get it done this year, that's a wrap. So when you hear you should be fired, you're a human being. That might trigger something. You might, from that standpoint, I understand that. But he's been in Philadelphia long enough to know what time it is with those fans, and that culture, that sports culture. Like, come on, you're not winning that. You have zero chance to win that battle. Zero. Don't even fight it. Go in the locker room, say, hey, and the funny thing is, he said all the right things outside of what he said. On the field to the fans, he said all the right things in the post-game press conference. Hey, it's tough to win this league. We got some things we'll get, normal coach speak shit. We got some things that will serve her. We got some things that will fix, blah, 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 so on and so on, which is fine. This is fine. But you want to go back and forth with that fan base? Like you haven't won the Super Bowl. I'm sorry. You got to the Super Bowl. You didn't win it. You don't have the cachet to go back and forth with a fan base, to argue back, to go at that fan base, not that fan base. And the team hasn't looked like the team. Listen, the Eagles haven't played well. Like the Eagles are 3-2, but it's a soft 3-2. They're getting outscored They get outscored. They have a negative 6 point differential, despite being 3-2. They haven't played well. They haven't played well this year. They haven't looked the part. They have not looked anywhere near that team that went to the Super Bowl in 2022. Not even close. Not even close to that team. Who won the week? The NFC North. Give the Bears a lot of credit. Again, I was not high on Caleb Williams starting the season, and basically because I'm not big on first year quarterbacks starting and getting the shit kicked out of them. But this class has been so far has been strong. Let's be honest. Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, who is trying to enter his name into the rookie of the year. If he keeps playing, that could be a 2-man race. And I was very impressed by Drake May, despite the fact that he had a couple of interceptions and took an absolute beating. He threw the ball extremely well, and he made the New England Patriots actually look like a professional football offense. So very impressed with Drake May. We know the arm talent. But again, I would have waited to play him because he took way too many hits yesterday. Took a lot of hits. I probably would have waited to December to play him. Now again, because that team, from my opposite standpoint, that team is god awful. They have nothing offensively outside of Drake May. I mean, nothing. But he played well in spite of that, and will definitely provide some hope for a spark just for the fans. Give the fans something to watch for the next few months until they get to the off season. But the NFC North again has been historic up to this point. I mentioned earlier, first time in the history that they have a cumulative winning percentage of 750 this late in the season. You know how I feel about Detroit and Green Bay. Minnesota has been one of the surprises of the season, and the Bears have played well since some early struggles in the season. They've actually played well defensively. Going back to last season, I think they have 12 straight games of giving up 21 or less points. So defense is playing well. I don't think all 4 of these teams is making the playoffs. I probably would. I don't think the Bears are going to make the playoffs myself. But Green Bay and Detroit to me are virtual locks to make the playoffs if the quarterbacks are healthy. But a fun division to watch, especially when you have a division like this, and it was similar to the AFC North last year. All the matchups are good, and all the matchups are worth watching. So that's the fun thing about this. When the division, when you have teams playing at this level, every matchup that they play against each other is a hell of a watch. Is worth a watch, and you will get some of that this week when you have Detroit and Minnesota, which will have a showdown for first place in that division. A couple of real thoughts if I let you go in regards to college football. First of all, this week in college football absolutely did not disappoint. Great games with Ole Miss, LSU, Ole Miss. What transpired with that, a classic with Ohio State and Oregon. But what stood out? There were 2 games that stood out to me. 2 of the more polarizing programs right now in college football. I could make a case the 2 most polarizing programs of college football right now in Alabama and Colorado. First of all, give Colorado credit. Now, I'm not going to say they've completely turned the corner, but they're headed in the right direction. They had a tough loss to a very good Kansas State team that came in ranked 18th in the country, 31-28. I thought they got, it was a horrible non-pass interference call that should have been called, but those things happen. Colorado went toe-to-toe with the Kansas State team, so they, fall to 4-2, but that was a very telling game. Sometimes you can even win when you lose. And that definitely was one of those games. They played extremely well in that game, and they should win enough games to be bowl eligible. Based off how they played up to this point, I find it hard to believe that they cannot win at least 2 more games to be bowl eligible. Alabama is if you're an Alabama fan, right? I need you to listen. Alabama escaped against South Carolina. They didn't win as much as they escaped 27-25. Probably should have lost the game. probably should have lost, to be perfectly honest with you. Coming off a loss against Vanderbilt at home, struggled to beat a South Carolina team that's just not that good, to say the least. Here's the thing. If you're an Alabama fan, and I really need you to listen very carefully. You are civilians now. 17 years you had with Nick Saban, 6 national championships, a bunch of top 5, top 10 finishes, January bowls, playoff appearances, year in and year out. That day is done. So instead of winning a championship every 3 to 5 years or 3 to 4 years, you might have to settle for one every decade. Like and guess what? That's okay. It's okay. Nick Saban is a once in a generation, maybe a once in a lifetime coach, considering what he did at Colorado, at Alabama. And that those days of dynasty, those days are done in college football. You know, like this run you see Georgia on is as close as you're going to see to a dynasty. So it's over from that standpoint. If you're an Alabama fan, just make it easier on yourself and come to that conclusion that you're not seeing 13-1, 14-0, 12-2 year in and year out. It's not. There's going to be some 10-3 seasons. There's going to be some 11-3 seasons. There's going to be some 3-loss seasons. That's coming. They already have one. They only have one loss now. Let me look at Alabama's schedule. Matter of fact, right now, they're at least. I know they have LSU again. They're gonna lose at least 2 more games before the season ends or is over. They have the schedule is brutal. So they still have Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma. Yeah. There are 2 losses in that. I don't know which 2 is going to be. I would lean towards them losing to LSU and probably you would like to say LSU and Tennessee. So they're going to lose 2 games. There are 2 more losses in there. Okay. Again, I promise you there are 2 more losses. Right. This is just what it is right now at this point. If you're an Alabama fan, again, those days, you're not seeing the Bear Bryant, Nick Saban. That's done. Done. I mean, that's absolutely done. Now, again, you can blame Kellen Dobert if you want to. Blame him. Good luck. Go blame him. Blame him. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you bring in to coach that team. Nick Saban is gone. He's retired. Kirby Smart's not leaving Georgia. There's nobody you can bring in. You have an excellent coach. Like this coach you have right now is a top coach. He's just not Nick Saban. No one is Nick Saban. So they are back. Again, you're still going to get top recruits. They're still going to spend a ton of money with NIL. They'll do the transfer portal. They'll make those adjustments. They'll evolve from that standpoint. But you are not, especially now with Texas and Oklahoma entering the SEC. Those domination days are over. I mean, over. And at some point, somebody's going to fix Florida. They're going to be back soon. Somebody's going to fix that program. There's still a bunch of talent in that state that you can recruit from. There's no way that Florida should be this down. No way. No school in Florida. That just shouldn't happen. That school's going to get fixed eventually. So, if you're an Alabama fan, I hope you enjoyed the last 17 years. It's over with. And I'm telling you, it doesn't mean you're going to be mediocre. No, you're just going to being just like the rest of the top teams in the country. You know, you'll get to the playoffs, you'll have some success, but the domination, that it factor, that winning the game before you step on the field, that's over with. Yeah, it's kind of like when Mike Tyson lost to Buster Douglas. After that, everybody was like, "Oh, this dude, he is beatable." I mean, we saw he got knocked out by Buster Douglas. That was it. Tyson, there was no more intimidation after that. Nick Saban was, in essence, Buster Douglas. Nick Saban retiring was Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson. And it's okay. It's nothing. It's okay. One championship every 10 years. Hey, not, it is what it is. Because that's where they're at. That's the direction that they're headed. No, not headed. That's where they're at. That's where they're at. That's where they are at right now. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. Of course, this podcast will be available tomorrow morning, tomorrow early afternoon. As always, you can download this podcast at iTunes, Apple, at iTunes, iHeart, Blog Talk Radio, anywhere, Spotify, anywhere where podcasts are available. Enjoy the rest of your week. So long.